I should have known something was wrong the moment Derek chose Bella Rosa. He'd never taken me anywhere that required reservations before. In 3 years together, our dates had been takeout on his couch, the occasional chain restaurant when he remembered my birthday a week late, and one disastrous camping trip where he'd forgotten the tent poles. But tonight, he'd insisted on this place, all marble columns and crystal chandeliers, the kind of restaurant where the prices weren't listed on the menu because if you had to ask, you couldn't afford it. I'd worn the red dress I'd been saving for something special. It hugged my curves in ways that made me feel beautiful and terrified at the same time. Derek hadn't even noticed when I'd walked out of the bedroom. Now I knew why. "Olivia, you have to understand," Derek was saying, his voice carrying that wheedling tone I'd grown to hate over the past year. "Victoria and it just happened. We didn't mean for it to go this far, but how long?" My voice came out steadier than I expected, considering my entire world was crumbling around the edges of my wine glass. He had the decency to look uncomfortable. 6 months. 6 months. Half a year of lies. Of coming home late, smelling like someone else's perfume. Of turning away from me in bed. Half a year of me making excuses for him. Believing him when he said the late nights were work. That the distance between us was just stress. I was such a fool. "She's sitting at the bar," Derek continued, and something in his tone made my blood run cold. "She wanted to meet you. To, I don't know, clear the air or something." That's when I understood. This wasn't just a breakup. This was a humiliation. He'd brought me to this expensive restaurant probably on her dime so she could see me, judge me, watch me fall apart while she claimed her prize. "You bastard," I whispered, my fingers tightening around the stem of my wine glass. "Don't be dramatic, Liv. Victoria's actually really nice once you—" I stood up so fast my chair scraped against the marble floor, the screech cutting through the elegant murmur of conversation around us. Every eye in the restaurant turned toward our table. "Good. Let them watch. 3 years, Derek. 3 years I wasted on you. 3 years of cooking your dinners, doing your laundry, listening to you complain about your job while you never once asked about mine. And this is how you end it? You parade me in front of your mistress like some kind of—" "Keep your voice down," he hissed, his face reddening. "You're making a scene." "I'm making a scene?" I laughed, but it came out harsh and broken. "You brought me here to meet the woman you've been fucking behind my back for 6 months, and I'm making a scene?" That's when I felt it, a shift in the air, like the temperature had dropped 10 degrees. The background noise of the restaurant didn't just quiet. It stopped. Completely. As if someone had pressed pause on the entire world. I turned, following the trajectory of every stare in the room, and my breath caught in my throat. He stood near the entrance, flanked by 4 men in black suits that probably cost more than my car. But it wasn't the entourage that made my heart stumble. It was him. Tall, easily over 6 feet, with dark hair swept back from a face that looked like it had been carved from marble by an artist who understood both beauty and cruelty. Sharp jawline, full lips set in a neutral expression that somehow conveyed absolute authority. But it was his eyes that held me frozen. Dark, intense, and currently locked directly on mine with a focus that felt physical. Like he could see through the red dress, through my skin, straight into the parts of myself I kept hidden from the world. He moved through the restaurant like he owned it. Maybe he did. Every table he passed seemed to shrink back slightly, conversations dying in his wake. The maître d' rushed toward him, practically bowing, but the man waved him off with a subtle gesture that spoke of long-practiced power. He was walking toward me. No, he was walking toward our table. "Olivia Martinez?" he said, and his voice was exactly what I'd imagined. Deep, smooth, with an edge of gravel that suggested danger lurking beneath cultured tones. An accent I couldn't quite place, maybe Italian. Maybe just the cadence of someone who'd spent too long giving orders that were never questioned. My voice failed me. How did he know my name? Derek had gone white. Actually white, like someone had drained all the blood from his face. He was staring at the man with an expression I'd never seen before, pure, primal fear. The stranger stopped at our table, his presence dominating the space. Up close, I could see the details. The perfectly tailored suit that moved with him like a second skin. The thin scar along his left cheekbone. The way his hands were relaxed at his sides, but held a readiness that suggested he could turn violent in a heartbeat. "You're making a mistake," he said to me, completely ignoring Derek. "Wasting tears on men who don't deserve them." "I'm not crying," I said automatically, then realized my cheeks were wet. Damn it. Something that might have been approval flickered in his dark eyes. "No. You're angry." That's better. He glanced at Derek, and I watched my ex-boyfriend actually flinch. This is the man who broke your heart? The question was casual, almost conversational. It was also the most terrifying thing I'd ever heard, because there was a weight behind it, an implication that Derek's answer or mine might determine whether he left this restaurant on his feet. Who the hell are you? Derek tried to sound tough. It came out as a squeak. The stranger's lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. No one you need to concern yourself with. He turned back to me, and the intensity of his attention made my skin prickle with awareness. But I'm someone who's about to make you an AG. Offer. An offer? I managed to say, my mind racing. Was this some kind of elaborate joke? A fever dream brought on by emotional trauma? Marry me. The words hung in the air. Around us I heard gasps, the clatter of a dropped fork, someone's sharp intake of breath. My own breathing had stopped entirely. What? It was barely a whisper. He reached into his jacket, all four of his men tensed, hands moving toward their own jackets in synchronized response, and pulled out a small velvet box. When he opened it, the ring inside caught the light from the chandeliers above, sending fractured rainbows across the white tablecloth. It was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. A large central diamond surrounded by smaller stones, set in platinum that gleamed like liquid moonlight. It was also probably worth more than everything I owned combined, multiplied by 100. I'm completely serious, he said, as if proposing to a stranger in the middle of a restaurant was a normal Tuesday evening activity. Marry me, Olivia Martinez. Tonight, tomorrow, whenever you say yes. You're insane, I said, but I couldn't look away from his eyes. There was something in them, not madness, but calculation, purpose. This wasn't a romantic gesture or an impulse. This was a plan, and somehow I'd become part of it. Perhaps. He took a step closer, and I caught his scent, expensive cologne, layered over something darker, earthier, smoke and leather and danger. But I promise you this. Say yes, and you'll never spend another moment wondering if you're enough. Say yes. And men like him, he gestured dismissively at Derek, will never have the power to hurt you again. I don't even know your name, I protested weakly. Lucian Graves. He said it like I should recognize it. Like it should mean something. Derek made a sound like a wounded animal. When I glanced at him, he was backing away from the table, his chair scraping against the floor. Olivia, don't. Whatever he's offering, don't. Shut up, Derek. The words came out sharp and clear. For 3 years I'd bitten my tongue, made myself smaller, easier, more palatable. Not anymore. I looked back at Lucian Graves, this beautiful, terrifying stranger who'd just proposed to me in front of 50 witnesses and my cheating ex-boyfriend. Why? Why what? Why me? Why now? Why any of this? His smile was real this time, and it transformed his face from merely handsome to devastating. Because an hour ago, I watched you walk into this restaurant looking like a queen, and I knew 3 things immediately. He held up one finger. First, that dress was wasted on him. Another finger. Second, you have fire in you that you've learned to hide. A third finger. And third, I've spent 10 years building an empire, and I just realized I've been missing a queen to sit beside me. It was the most ridiculous thing I'd ever heard. It was also, in this moment of absolute chaos, exactly what some broken, reckless part of me wanted to hear. This is crazy, I said. Yes. He extended his hand to me, palm up, an invitation and a challenge. Say yes anyway. Around us, the restaurant held its collective breath. I could feel Derek staring at me, could sense Victoria watching from the bar, could practically taste the shocked anticipation of every diner within earshot. I should say no. I should walk out of here with what remained of my dignity and never look back. I should go home, eat ice cream, cry into my pillow, and start the long process of putting my life back together. I should do a lot of things. Instead, I placed my hand in Lucian Graves's, felt his fingers close around mine with a possessiveness that should have terrified me, and heard myself say, "Ask me again tomorrow. If you still want to marry a woman you met during her worst moment, ask me then, and I'll give you my answer." His grip tightened fractionally, and something flickered across his face surprise. Maybe, or respect. Tomorrow, he agreed. Then he lifted my hand to his lips, pressed a kiss to my knuckles that sent heat racing up my arm, and added in a voice low enough that only I could hear. But understand this, Olivia. I never offer anything twice. Tomorrow, you'll either become mine, Or you'll spend the rest of your life wondering what would have happened if you'd been brave enough to say yes." He released my hand and stepped back, and the world rushed in again, sound, movement, the reality of what had just happened. Derek was gone, I realized. He'd fled while Lucian held my attention, disappeared like the coward he was. Lucian turned to leave, his men falling into formation around him, and I knew that if I let him walk out that door, I'd regret it for the rest of my life. "Wait," I called out. He stopped, looked back over his shoulder. "How will you find me tomorrow?" That dangerous smile returned. "Olivia, I found you tonight, didn't I? I'll find you tomorrow." And then he was gone, leaving me standing alone beside an abandoned table in a silent restaurant, wearing a red dress and holding the memory of his kiss on my skin, wondering what the hell I'd just agreed to. It wasn't until I was in the cab heading home that I realized he'd never actually told me what he did for a living. Why Derek had been so afraid. Why his name should have meant something to me. I pulled out my phone and typed with shaking fingers. Lucian Graves. The results loaded, and my blood turned to ice. Alleged crime boss. Organized crime family. Under federal investigation. I'd just promised to consider a marriage proposal from a man who made Derek look like a choir boy. A man who'd looked at me like I was already his. A man who'd kissed my hand in a room full of witnesses and made me feel, for the first time in 3 years, like I was worth something. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Sleep well, Olivia. Tomorrow everything changes." I stared at the message, my heart pounding, and realized with absolute certainty that tomorrow couldn't come fast enough. I didn't sleep. How could I? Every time I closed my eyes, I saw him, Lucian Graves, standing in that restaurant like he owned not just the building but the very air inside it. I saw the way Derek had looked at him, that primal terror that went beyond simple fear. I saw the ring, glittering like a promise or a threat. I still wasn't sure which. Mostly, I saw his eyes, dark and intense and fixed on me like I was the only person in a room full of people. At 3 a.m., I'd given up on sleep entirely and spent the next 4 hours spiraling down a rabbit hole of Google searches. Each article I found made my stomach tighten with a different flavor of dread. Lucian Graves, heir to the Graves criminal empire. Federal investigation into alleged racketeering, extortion. 3 rival gang members found dead in a warehouse fire. Graves questioned but never charged. Known for his ruthlessness in business dealings, both legal and otherwise. The pictures showed him in expensive suits at charity galas, cutting ribbons at hospital openings, shaking hands with politicians. In every photo, he looked exactly as he had last night, devastatingly handsome, perfectly controlled, and absolutely dangerous. One article quoted an anonymous source, "Cross Lucian Graves, and you don't just lose, you disappear." I should have been terrified. I was terrified. But underneath the fear was something else, something I didn't want to examine too closely. A thrill, an awareness, the memory of his hand around mine, the heat of his lips on my knuckles, the way he'd looked at me like I was worth burning the world down for. God, what was wrong with me? By the time the sun rose over my tiny apartment, I'd convinced myself that last night had been some kind of fever dream. Men like Lucian Graves didn't propose to women like me. We existed in completely different universes. He'd probably woken up this morning, realized what an insane impulse he'd acted on, and already forgotten my name. I told myself that as I showered, as I dressed for my shift at the hospital in scrubs that had seen better days, as I grabbed my bag and headed for the door. I was still telling myself that when I stepped outside and found the black SUV waiting at the curb, my heart stopped. Then it started again, too fast, hammering against my ribs like it was trying to escape my chest. The SUV's back door opened, and a man stepped out. Not Lucian, one of the men who'd been with him last night. Tall, broad-shouldered, with a scar running through his left eyebrow and the kind of face that had seen too much violence to ever look truly relaxed. "Miss Martinez," he said, his voice rough but not unkind. "Mr. Graves requests the pleasure of your company for breakfast." "I have work," I said automatically, even as my mind screamed at me to run back inside and lock the door. "Mr. Graves has already contacted the hospital. You've been given the day off. Paid." Of course he had. Because apparently, when you were Lucian Graves, you could just rearrange people's lives with a phone call. "And if I say no?" I asked, trying to sound braver than I felt. The man's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Respect, maybe, or pity. Then I'm instructed to wait here until you change your mind, however long that takes. I looked at the SUV, then at my beat-up Honda parked 3 spaces down. I thought about the research I'd done last night, the articles about disappearances and unsolved murders. I thought about Derek's face when he'd realized who Lucian was. I should run. Every instinct I had screamed at me to run. Instead, I heard myself ask, "Does he always get what he wants?" The man's lips twitched into something that might have been a smile. "Always, Miss Martinez. The only question is whether people make it easy or hard on themselves. That's not ominous at all," I muttered. But I was already walking toward the SUV. The interior was exactly what I'd expected. Black leather, tinted windows, the faint smell of expensive cologne and gun oil. The man who'd spoken to me I really needed to learn, his name slid into the front passenger seat. Another man I hadn't noticed before sat behind the wheel, and when he pulled away from the curb, it was with the kind of smooth precision that spoke of professional driver training or chase experience. I really didn't want to think about that. We drove in silence through the morning traffic. I watched the familiar streets of my neighborhood give way to increasingly upscale areas, the buildings getting taller and newer, the cars on the road getting more expensive. When we finally pulled up in front of a high-rise that probably had its own zip code, I felt my stomach drop. "This is where he lives?" I asked, staring up at the glass and steel tower that seemed to pierce the clouds. "Penthouse suite?" the man confirmed, opening my door. "Top 3 floors?" Of course, the top 3 floors. Why would Lucian Graves settle for anything less than literal elevation above the rest of the city? The lobby was all marble and gold accents, with a doorman who nodded respectfully to my escort but watched me with undisguised curiosity. We took a private elevator that required a keycard to access, and as we rose higher and higher, I felt my heart rising with us, lodging somewhere in my throat. What was I doing? 24 hours ago, my biggest problem was a cheating boyfriend. Now I was being escorted to a Mafia boss's penthouse because he'd proposed to me in a moment of what? Insanity? Strategy? Some kind of elaborate game I didn't understand the rules to. The elevator doors opened directly into the penthouse, and whatever I'd been expecting, it wasn't this. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the city spread out below like a kingdom awaiting its ruler. The decor was minimalist but clearly expensive modern furniture in shades of gray and black, abstract art on the walls that probably cost more than my yearly salary. Everything was clean, sharp, controlled, except for the breakfast spread on the dining table that could have seated 12, and Lucian, standing by the windows with a coffee cup in his hand, backlit by the morning sun like some kind of dark angel. He'd abandoned the suit jacket from last night. Now he wore just black slacks and a white dress shirt with the sleeves rolled up to his elbows, revealing forearms that were more muscular than I'd expected. His hair was still damp, like he'd recently showered, and when he turned to look at me, I felt that same electric jolt of awareness I'd experienced in the restaurant. "Olivia," he said, and my name in his voice sounded like a claim. "I'm glad you came." Did I have a choice? The words came out sharper than I'd intended, defensive. His lips curved into that almost smile. "There's always a choice. You could have refused. Your man said he'd wait outside my apartment until I changed my mind. I said there's always a choice. I didn't say all choices are equally comfortable." He set down his coffee cup and moved toward me with that predatory grace I remembered from last night. "But you're here. That's what matters." "Why?" I demanded, staying rooted by the elevator even as everything in me wanted to either run toward him or away from him. I couldn't decide which. "Why did you propose to me? Why track down where I live? Why am I here?" He stopped a few feet away, close enough that I could smell his cologne different from last night, lighter, with notes of citrus and cedar, close enough that I had to tilt my head back to meet his eyes. "Because I meant every word I said last night," he said simply. "I want you to marry me, Olivia Martinez. You don't know me. I don't know you. It's insane. Is it?" He reached out slowly, giving me time to pull away, and tucked a strand of hair behind my ear. The touch was gentle, almost tender, but I felt it like an electric current straight through my body. "I know you're a nurse at St. Catherine's Hospital. I know you've worked the overnight shift for 3 years to avoid going home to a man who didn't appreciate you. I know you send money to your mother in Texas every month, even when it means you eat ramen for dinner. I know you're stronger than you think you are, kinder than most people deserve, and you have a steel spine hiding under all that softness." My blood ran cold. "You had me investigated." "Of course I did." He said it without apology, without shame. "I don't make investments without research, and you, Olivia, are the most important investment I'll ever make. I'm not an investment. I'm a person. I stepped back, and his hand fell away, but his eyes never left my face. This is crazy. You're crazy. I came here to tell you that my answer is no. I'm not going to marry someone I met 12 hours ago, no matter how much money you have or how... I cut myself off before I could finish that thought. How magnetic you are. How you make me feel seen in a way no one ever has. How terrifying and thrilling this all is. How what? He prompted, and there was something dangerous in his voice now. Something that reminded me exactly who I was dealing with. It doesn't matter. I turned back toward the elevator. Thank you for breakfast, but I need to... There's a problem with Derek. I froze, my hand already reaching for the elevator button. What? Your ex-boyfriend. Lucian's voice was casual now, conversational, but I could hear the edge underneath. He's been running his mouth, telling people about last night, about my proposal, about you. I turned slowly to face him. So what? Let him talk. It's not like anyone will. He's talking to the wrong people, Olivia. People who might see you as leverage against me. People who don't care about collateral damage when they're trying to make a point. The room suddenly felt too cold. You're saying I'm in danger because of what happened last night. I'm saying you were in danger the moment I walked up to your table. He moved closer again, and this time I didn't step back. I made you visible to my world, and my world is full of people who would use you to get to me. Then take it back. Tell everyone it was a joke, or a mistake, or I don't take things back. His hand came up to cut my face, his thumb brushing along my cheekbone. And I don't make mistakes. I chose you last night, Olivia. Whether you marry me or not, that choice has consequences. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. That's not fair. No, he agreed. It's not, but it's the truth. You have 3 options now. He held up one finger. Marry me. Become my wife, and I'll protect you with everything I have. You'll be untouchable. A second finger. Refuse me, and I'll assign you security. You'll spend the rest of your life looking over your shoulder, wondering if every stranger is a threat. A third finger. Or run. Change your name, leave the city, start over somewhere else. I won't stop you. Those are terrible options. I whispered. Welcome to my world. His voice softened slightly. I know what I'm asking. I know how insane this must seem. But I'm offering you something most people never get. Absolute honesty. I want you, Olivia. I want you as my wife, by my side, in my life. And I promise you this. If you say yes, I will give you everything. Protection, security, loyalty, and anything else you ask for. Except freedom. Something flickered across his face. Was it hurt? Regret? It was gone too quickly for me to tell. Freedom to do what? Work yourself to death at a hospital that undervalues you? Date men like Derek who treat you like an afterthought? Struggle to pay rent while you sacrifice your own needs for everyone else? He leaned closer, his breath warm against my skin. I'm not offering you a cage, Olivia. I'm offering you power. The power to stop, apologizing for taking up space. The power to be exactly who you are without making yourself smaller for anyone. I wanted to argue. I wanted to tell him he was wrong, that he didn't understand, that this wasn't about power or protection or any of the things he was offering, but my voice wouldn't work. Because some part of me, the part I'd been trying to ignore since last night, knew he was right. I was tired. Tired of struggling, of settling, of pretending I didn't want more than the crumbs life had offered me so far. I need time, I finally said. This is too much, too fast. I need to think. Time is a luxury I can't give you. His hand was still on my face, his thumb still tracing gentle patterns on my skin. My enemies move quickly. By tonight, everyone in this city will know I've claimed you. By tomorrow, some of them will be planning how to use that information. So you're saying I have to decide now? Today? I'm saying you already know your answer. His eyes bore into mine, dark and intense and seeing far too much. You knew it last night when you gave me your hand instead of walking away. You knew it when you got into the car this morning instead of running. You know it now, standing here with me when every logical part of your brain is screaming at you to leave. You're wrong, I said, but my voice shook. Am I? He leaned in closer. So close our lips were almost touching. Then prove it. Tell me to let you go. Tell me you feel nothing. Tell me you'll walk out of here and never think about me again. I opened my mouth to say exactly that. The words were right there, simple and clear, and exactly what I should say. But what came out instead was, I can't. His eyes blazed with triumph, and something else, something that looked almost like relief. Then stop fighting this. Stop fighting us. There is no us. There's just you, making demands, and me, trying to figure out if I'm about to make the biggest mistake of my life, or the best decision you've ever made. He pulled back slightly, giving me space to breathe. Stay with me today. Let me show you what your life could be. If, by tonight, you still want to leave, I'll have my men take you home. I'll assign you security, and I'll keep my distance. But give me today, Olivia. Give me a chance to prove I'm not the monster you think I am. It was a trap. It had to be. Because Lucian Graves didn't strike me as the kind of man who accepted no for an answer. If I stayed, if I gave him today, I'd be falling deeper into a world I didn't understand, with a man who terrified and fascinated me in equal measure. But when I looked into his eyes, I saw something I hadn't expected to find there. Vulnerability. Hidden beneath all the power and control and danger, there was something raw and real. He wasn't lying when he said he wanted me. The question was, why? One day, I heard myself say, but I'm not promising anything beyond that. The smile that spread across his face was genuine this time, transforming him from dangerous to devastating in the space of a heartbeat. One day, he agreed. That's all I'm asking. He was lying, of course. I could see it in his eyes. One day would never be enough for Lucian Graves. The terrifying part was, I wasn't sure it would be enough for me either. Breakfast was surreal. Lucian had dismissed his men with a subtle gesture, leaving us alone in the vast penthouse. He guided me to the dining table where the spread waited fresh fruit, pastries that looked like they'd been flown in from Paris, eggs, Benedict, artisan cheeses, and coffee that smelled like liquid heaven. I didn't know what you liked, he said, pulling out a chair for me. So I ordered everything. This is excessive, I said. But I was already reaching for a croissant because I'd skipped dinner last night and my stomach was staging a revolt. Get used to it. He sat across from me, watching with an intensity that made me hyper-aware of every movement I made. Excess is kind of my thing. I took a bite of the croissant and nearly moaned. It dissolved on my tongue, buttery and perfect. Okay, this almost makes the kidnapping worth it. You weren't kidnapped. You came willingly. Under duress counts as kidnapping in most jurisdictions. His lips twitched. Are you always this argumentative? Only when I'm having breakfast with alleged crime bosses who propose to strangers. I met his gaze over my coffee cup. Speaking of which, you never actually explained why. And don't give me that you looked like a queen line again. That might work on some women, but I need the real reason. He leaned back in his chair, studying me with an expression I couldn't quite read. For a long moment, he said nothing, and I wondered if I'd pushed too far. Then he spoke, his voice quieter than before. My father arranged my mother's marriage when she was 19. She didn't love him. She didn't even like him. But she married him anyway because that's what daughters did in our world. And she spent the next 30 years of her life being invisible, being silent, being exactly what everyone expected her to be. Something in his tone made my chest tighten. What happened to her? Cancer. 5 years ago. His jaw clenched. She died without ever living a single day for herself. And when I stood at her funeral, watching them lower her into the ground, I made myself a promise. When I chose a wife, it would be someone who had fire, someone who wouldn't disappear into the background, someone who'd stand beside me, not behind me. And you think I'm that person based on one conversation? I think you told a man you'd wasted 3 years on to shut up in front of 50 witnesses. I think you agreed to have breakfast with someone you Googled all night and discovered is exactly as dangerous as you suspected. I think you're sitting here challenging me instead of telling me what you think I want to hear. He leaned forward, intensity radiating from him. Yes, Olivia. I think you're exactly that person. I didn't know what to say. This wasn't the answer I'd expected. I'd thought it would be about power, or strategy, or some criminal enterprise reason that made sense in his world, not this raw, honest vulnerability. I'm not brave, I finally said. Last night, standing up to Derek, that was just anger. And being here now? I'm terrified. Bravery isn't the absence of fear. It's doing what needs to be done despite it. He stood, walking around the table until he was standing beside me. Come, I want to show you something. He offered his hand, and after a moment's hesitation I took it. His fingers closed around mine with that same possessive certainty from last night, and he led me through the penthouse to a set of glass doors I hadn't noticed before. They opened onto a terrace that wrapped around the entire floor. The city sprawled below us in every direction, tiny cars and people living their lives completely unaware of the conversation happening above them. "This is my favorite place," Lucian said, still holding my hand. "Up here, everything else feels small, manageable, like I can control it all if I just think hard enough about the right moves to make." "Can you control it all?" "No." The admission seemed to cost him something. "I control what I can. The rest, I prepare for. But there are always variables. Always chaos waiting to disrupt even the best plans." "Is that what I am? Chaos?" He turned to face me, and the look in his eyes stole my breath. "You're the variable I never saw coming, the disruption I should have avoided." His free hand came up to cup my face. And the one thing I refused to let go of. My heart hammered against my ribs. We were standing too close, his body heat warming the space between us. I should step back, create distance. Remember that this man was dangerous, that I'd known him less than 24 hours, that everything about this situation screamed bad decision, but I couldn't move. Lucian. His name felt strange on my tongue. Intimate. "I want to kiss you," he said, his thumb brushing across my lower lip. "I've wanted to since I saw you in that red dress, but I need you to tell me it's okay. I need to hear you say yes." Every rational thought in my head screamed no. This was insane. He was a criminal. This was all moving too fast. I should leave, go home, forget this ever happened. But standing there on that terrace with the wind in my hair and his hand on my face and his eyes looking at me like I was something precious and dangerous all at once, rational thought didn't stand a chance. "Yes," I whispered. He closed the distance between us so fast I gasped. His lips met mine with a hunger that should have frightened me but instead ignited something I hadn't known was sleeping inside me. This wasn't a gentle first kiss. This was claim and promise and demand all wrapped into one devastating moment. His hand slid into my hair, angling my head to deepen the kiss. His other arm wrapped around my waist, pulling me flush against him. I could feel every hard plane of his body, the controlled strength in the way he held me tight enough to keep me close, gentle enough that I knew he'd let go the instant I asked. I didn't ask. Instead, I kissed him back with 3 years of frustration and loneliness, and hunger for something more than the scraps I'd been accepting as enough. My hands fisted in his shirt, pulling him closer, and I felt his sharp intake of breath against my lips. When we finally broke apart, we were both breathing hard. His forehead rested against mine, his hands still holding me like I might disappear if he let go. "That," he said, his voice rough, "was worth every risk." I should have said something witty, something to break the intensity of the moment, but all I could manage was, "I'm in so much trouble." He laughed, the sound low and genuinely amused. "Yes, you are. We both are." He pulled back just enough to meet my eyes. "But at least we're in it together." My phone buzzed in my pocket, shattering the moment. I pulled it out to find 3 missed calls from my coworker Sarah, and a text that made my blood run cold. "Liv, where are you? Derek showed up at the hospital looking for you. He was acting crazy, saying something about you being in danger. Security escorted him out, but he's been calling asking about your schedule. Should I be worried?" Lucian's expression changed the instant he saw my face. "What is it?" I showed him the text. His jaw clenched, and suddenly the man who'd just kissed me with such tenderness looked every inch the dangerous crime boss I'd read about online. "Get Marco," he said, and I realized he was speaking into what must have been a hidden microphone. Seconds later, the scarred man from earlier appeared on the terrace. "Problem?" Marco asked. "Derek Walsh is sniffing around the hospital. I want eyes on him. Now." Lucian's voice was cold, controlled fury. "And find out who he's been talking to." Marco nodded and disappeared as quickly as he'd come. Lucian turned back to me, and some of the hardness left his expression. "This is my fault. I should have handled him last night." "Handled him how?" I asked, not entirely sure I wanted to know the answer. However necessary. He saw my expression and sighed. "I wasn't going to kill him, Olivia, but I should have made it clear that talking about you, approaching you, or even thinking about you, was off limits. He's my ex-boyfriend, not a criminal. You can't just threaten people because they're annoying. Watch me." There was no humor in his voice now. "He put you in my world. Intentionally or not. He made you visible to people who will absolutely use you to get to me. That's not annoying. That's dangerous." The reality of what I'd agreed to spending the day with him, considering his proposal. Kissing him on this terrace came crashing down around me. This wasn't a fairy tale. This was real danger, real consequences, real people who I might want to hurt me simply because Lucian Graves had decided I was his. Maybe I should go, I said quietly. No. His hand caught mine before I could step away. Please. Not yet. Not like this, Lucian. One day. You promised me one day. His eyes bore into mine, desperate now in a way that cracked something open in my chest. Don't let him ruin this. Don't let fear make your decisions. He was right. I had promised, and running now wouldn't make me any safer. The damage, as he'd said, was already done. Okay, I said. One day. But you need to promise me something. Anything. Promise me Derek won't get hurt. Whatever he's done, he doesn't deserve, I promise. The words were immediate, certain. No harm will come to him. You have my word. I nodded, trying to ignore how much I wanted to believe him. How much I wanted to stay on this terrace. In this moment, where the world below seemed small and manageable, and the man in front of me looked at me like I was worth protecting. So, I said, forcing lightness into my voice. What does one do on a day with a Mafia boss? His smile returned, dangerous and devastating. Whatever she wants, Olivia. Whatever she wants. Lucian's idea of showing me his world started with a car ride through the city. Not the black SUV from this morning, but a sleek silver Aston Martin that probably cost more than my apartment building. He drove himself this time, one hand on the wheel, the other resting casually on the gear shift between us. Marco and another guard followed in a car behind us, close enough to respond to trouble but far enough to give us the illusion of privacy. Where are we going? I asked as we merged onto the highway. You'll see. His lips curved into that almost smile I was beginning to recognize. Patience, Olivia. I'm a terrible patient person. I've noticed. He glanced at me, his eyes warm with amusement. It's one of the things I like about you. We drove for 20 minutes, leaving the city center, behind for an area I didn't recognize. Industrial buildings gave way to warehouses, and my stomach tightened with unease. This felt like the kind of place where bad things happened in movies. Lucian, trust me, he said simply. And somehow, impossibly, I did. He pulled up to a warehouse that looked abandoned from the outside, but when he entered a code on a keypad, heavy doors rolled open to reveal something completely unexpected. Inside was a garage that belonged in a magazine. Dozens of cars lined the walls, vintage Ferraris, classic Mustangs, motorcycles that gleamed under industrial lighting. Every surface was immaculate, and the air smelled of leather and motor oil and money. I stepped out of the Aston Martin, turning in a slow circle. This is incredible. My father's collection, Lucian said, coming to stand beside me. He died when I was 22, left me his empire and his cars. He ran his hand along the hood of a cherry-red 1967 Corvette. I come here when I need to think, when everything else feels too complicated. I heard what he wasn't saying. This was sacred space, private, and he was sharing it with me. Which one's your favorite? I asked. He didn't hesitate. The Ducati, the black one in the corner. He walked toward it and I followed. My father bought it the year I was born, said when I was old enough, it would be mine. We restored it together before he died. I watched him trace the motorcycle's lines with something close to reverence. This wasn't the crime boss or the dangerous man who'd kissed me on the terrace. This was just Lucian, remembering someone he'd loved and lost. You miss him, I said softly. Every day. He looked up at me. He wasn't perfect, did things I'm not proud of, but he loved my mother, even if he didn't know how to show it, and he taught me that power without purpose is just destruction. What's your purpose? I'm still figuring that out. His phone buzzed, and the softness disappeared from his expression. He pulled it out, read the screen, and his jaw clenched. We need to go. Now. The shift was so abrupt, I barely had time to process it before he was guiding me back to the car, his hand firm on my lower back. Marco's voice crackled through an earpiece I hadn't noticed Lucian wearing. What's wrong? I asked as we peeled out of the warehouse. Derek. Lucian's hands were tight on the wheel. He contacted the Volkov family, told them about you. The name meant nothing to me, but the way Lucian said it made ice slide down my spine. Who are they? Russian Mafia. My biggest rivals. He took a corner too fast, and I grabbed the door handle. They've been looking for leverage against me for months. Your ex-boyfriend just handed it to them on a fucking platter. I don't understand. Why would Derek? Money, revenge, stupidity. Take your pick. His voice was cold now, controlled fury barely contained. He probably thought they'd pay him for information. What he didn't realize is that people like the Volkovs don't pay for anything they can take by force. My hands were shaking. Lucian, I'm sorry. I never thought. This isn't your fault. He glanced at me, his expression softening fractionally. But we need to get you somewhere safe. My estate outside the city. Full security. No one gets in or out without my authorization. You're taking me to your house? Like, actually moving me in? I'm keeping you alive. The car swerved around another corner. The Volkovs know who you are now. Where you work. Probably where you live. They'll move fast, which means we need to move faster. This was insane. 24 hours ago I was a nurse with a cheating boyfriend and too much debt. Now I was being hunted by Russian mobsters because a Mafia boss had decided I was his. Maybe I should go to the police, I said, knowing even as the words left my mouth how naive they sounded. Lucian's laugh was harsh. The police can't protect you from this. Half of them are on the pod, Volkov payroll anyway. He reached over, his hand finding mine and squeezing. I can protect you, Olivia, but you have to let me. I wanted to argue, to insist I could handle this myself, that I didn't need a man, especially not a criminal, to save me. But I wasn't stupid. Derek had done something monumentally reckless, and now I was caught in the crossfire of a world I didn't understand. Okay, I whispered. Okay. His hand tightened on mine. I won't let anything happen to you. I swear it. We drove in tense silence for another 15 minutes. The city disappeared behind us, replaced by sprawling estates hidden behind high walls and iron gates. When we finally turned onto a private road, I saw armed guards stationed at intervals, their presence a stark reminder that this wasn't a home, it was a fortress. The estate itself was breathtaking, a modern mansion of glass and stone that seemed to grow organically from the landscape, surrounded by manicured gardens and what looked like a small forest beyond. As we pulled up to the front entrance, I saw more guards, more security, more evidence of the danger Lucian lived with every day. Welcome home, he said, but there was no humor in it. Inside was just as impressive as the penthouse, but warmer somehow. The decor here spoke of someone who actually lived in the space books on shelves. Art that looked chosen for love rather than investment. A lived-in quality the penthouse had lacked. Your room is upstairs, Lucian said, leading me through a grand foyer. Second door on the left. Anything you need, just ask. I've already had clothes and toiletries brought in. You keep a stock of women's clothing just lying around? I had them purchased this morning. Your size, your style. He saw my expression. I told you. I'm thorough. Of course he was. Because apparently, when you were Lucian Graves, you could predict exactly how your spontaneous proposal would play out and prepare accordingly. We climbed a sweeping staircase, and he showed me to a room that was bigger than my entire apartment. The bed alone could sleep 4 people comfortably, and the windows overlooked gardens that seemed to stretch forever. Get some rest, he said. We'll talk more once I've dealt with the Derek situation. Dealt with how? I caught his arm before he could leave. You promised he wouldn't get hurt. And I'll keep that promise. But something dark flickered in his eyes. But he needs to understand the consequences of his actions. Needs to know that talking about you, endangering you, is off limits. Lucian. He turned fully toward me, and suddenly we were standing too close again, the air between us charged with the same electricity from the terrace. Do you trust me? It was a loaded question. I barely knew him. He was a criminal. This entire situation was insane. I don't know, I answered honestly. Fair enough. He reached up, tucking a strand of hair behind my ear in a gesture that was becoming familiar. But I meant what I said. I will protect you, whatever it takes. Before I could respond, his phone buzzed again. He glanced at it, and his expression hardened. I have to go. Stay in the house. Don't go outside. Don't answer the door for anyone except Marco or me. You're scaring me. Good. He pressed a quick, hard kiss to my forehead. Fear will keep you cautious. Caution will keep you alive. And then he was gone, his footsteps echoing down the hallway, leaving me alone in a gilded cage with nothing but my racing thoughts and the terrible knowledge that my life would never be the same. I walked to the window, watching as Lucian's car disappeared down the drive, flanked by the security vehicles. Somewhere out there, People were planning to use me as a weapon against him. Derek had set something in motion that I couldn't stop, couldn't control. All I could do was wait, and hope that Lucian Graves was as dangerous as everyone said he was. Because right now, that danger was the only thing standing between me and something far worse. I lasted 45 minutes before the walls started closing in. The room was beautiful, luxurious beyond anything I'd ever experienced, but it was still a cage. I paced from the window to the bed and back again, my mind spinning with everything that had happened. Derek's stupidity, the Volkovs, the way Lucian had kissed me on the terrace before everything went to hell. I tried the door. Unlocked. At least I wasn't a prisoner in the traditional sense. The hallway was quiet, almost eerily so. I could hear voices somewhere below, low and urgent. Against my better judgment, I followed the sound down the staircase, through a hallway lined with art I probably should have appreciated more, until I found myself outside a heavy wooden door that was slightly ajar. Don't care what he thought he'd get from them. Lucian's voice, cold and sharp as a blade. He put her at risk. That's unforgivable. He's terrified. Marco's rougher tone. Practically pissed himself when we picked him up. Says he didn't know what he was doing. Just thought they'd pay him for information about your personal life. Ignorance isn't innocence. A pause. Where is he now? Basement, waiting for you. My hand flew to my mouth. They had Derek. Here, in this house. I should have stayed in my room. Should have turned around and pretended I'd heard nothing. Instead, I pushed the door open wider. Lucian stood behind a massive desk, his shirt sleeves still rolled up, his expression carved from stone. Marco stood beside him, and 3 other men I didn't recognize were positioned around the room. Every eye turned to me when I entered. Olivia, Lucian's voice softened fractionally. You should be resting. You have Derek here. It wasn't a question. His jaw tightened. Yes, I want to see him. No, he's here because of me. I should. Olivia. He moved around the desk with that predatory grace. You don't want to see him right now. Trust. Is he hurt? No. The word was firm, certain. And he won't be. I promised you that. I studied his face, looking for deception, but found only grim honesty. Then let me see him. Let me talk to him. Maybe I can make him understand how serious this is. Lucian exchanged a look with Marco that I couldn't interpret. Then he sighed. 5 minutes. Marco stays in the room. And if I tell you to leave, you leave immediately. Understood? I nodded, not trusting my voice. The basement was accessed through a door off the kitchen. Of course it was. And as we descended the stairs, I tried not to think about what other things might have happened down here. The space was surprisingly ordinary. Concrete floor, exposed beams, storage boxes along one wall, and Derek, sitting in a metal chair with his hands zip-tied in front of him. He looked terrible. His face was pale, his eyes red-rimmed, and when he saw me, something between relief and terror crossed his features. Liv, thank God. Tell them this is a mistake. Tell them I didn't mean, shut up, Derek. The words came out harder than I'd intended. Just shut up and listen. He closed his mouth, stunned. I moved closer, hyper-aware of Lucian standing behind me like a dark shadow. What were you thinking? Russian mobsters? You went to the Russian Mafia with information about me? I didn't know. His voice cracked. This guy approached me at a bar. Said he'd heard about the proposal. Wanted to know more about your relationship with Graves. Offered me $50,000 just to talk. I don't know what I thought. That it was just gossip or something. You thought $50,000 for gossip was normal? I wanted to shake him. You're not that stupid, Derek. Or maybe you are. Maybe I just never noticed because I was too busy making excuses for you. I'm sorry. Tears streaked down his face. I'm so sorry, Liv. I didn't mean to put you in danger. I was angry about last night, about him proposing to you, and I wanted to hurt him the way he humiliated me, so you put a target on my back. I laughed, but it came out bitter. 3 years, Derek. 3 years I gave you, and this is how it ends, with you selling me out for revenge and money. I didn't know what they'd do with the information. I swear, that's the problem. Lucian's voice cut through the basement like ice. You didn't care. You saw an opportunity to profit from Olivia's situation, and you took it. Derek's eyes widened with fear when Lucian stepped forward. Please. I'll leave the city. I'll disappear. Just don't. Relax. Lucian's tone was almost bored. I'm not going to kill you. Olivia asked me not to hurt you. And unlike you, I keep my promises. He crouched down to Derek's eye level. But understand this. If you speak her name again, if you think about her, if you even dream about her, I'll know. And the mercy I'm showing you right now will evaporate. Are we clear? Derek nodded frantically. Good. Lucian stood. Marco will drive you to the airport. There's a one-way ticket to Seattle waiting for you. You have family there, I believe. You'll stay there, build a new life, and you'll forget Olivia Martinez ever existed. Yes, thank you. I will. Lucian gestured to Marco, who cut Derek's restraints and hauled him to his feet. As they headed for the stairs, Derek looked back at me one last time. I really am sorry, Liv. So am I said quietly. Sorry I wasted 3 years on someone who never deserved them. Then they were gone, and I was alone with Lucian in the basement that suddenly felt too small, too intimate. You're angry, he observed. I'm furious. I turned to face him. At him for being so stupid. At myself for not seeing it sooner. At you for... I cut myself off. For what? For being right. The admission cost me. You said men like him didn't deserve my tears. You were right. You said I was stronger than I thought. Right again. And you said, choosing you would mean power, protection, no more apologizing for existing. I stepped closer to him. Was that right too? His eyes darkened with something that made my pulse skip. There's only one way to find out. The air between us crackled with tension. We were standing in a basement where he'd just terrified my ex-boyfriend, having a conversation that should have been happening anywhere else. But somehow, this felt right, raw and honest and stripped of all pretense. I'm still scared, I whispered. Good. He moved closer, his hand coming up to cup my face. I'd worry if you weren't. This world I live in, it's dangerous, violent. Nothing like what you're used to. Then why drag me into it? Because the moment I saw you, I knew. His thumb traced my lower lip. I knew you were the thing I'd been missing, the piece that would make everything else make sense. That's insane. Yes. His lips curved into that almost smile. But you're still here. Still standing in my basement, looking at me like you can't decide if you want to hit me or kiss me. Maybe both, I admitted. He laughed, the sound low and genuine. Then his expression turned serious. I meant what I said this morning. Marry me, Olivia. Not because of the danger or the protection or any practical reason. Marry me, because when I'm with you, I feel like maybe I'm more than just my father's legacy. More than the empire and the violence and the weight of everything I've built. My heart hammered against my ribs. Lucian, you don't have to answer now. His forehead rested against mine. But I need you to know. This isn't a game for me. You're not a possession or a prize. You're the first real thing I've wanted in 10 years. I should have needed more time. Should have demanded answers, guarantees, promises he probably couldn't keep. But standing there with his breath warm on my skin and his eyes looking at me like I was something precious and powerful, I realized something terrifying. I didn't. I want to leave. I wanted to stay in this dangerous, impossible world if it meant more moments like this. More of him looking at me like I mattered. More of feeling alive instead of just surviving. Ask me again, I heard myself say. His eyes widened fractionally. Olivia, ask me. He pulled back just enough to meet my gaze fully. Marry me. Yes. Section 6. Betrayal or revelation. The word hung in the air between us. Yes. I'd said yes. To marrying a man I'd known for less than 48 hours. A criminal. A mafia boss. Someone who kept zip ties and interrogation chairs in his basement as casually as other people kept storage boxes. And the terrifying part? I meant it. Lucian's expression transformed. The controlled, dangerous man disappeared, replaced by something raw and almost vulnerable. He pulled me against him, his arms wrapping around me with a fierce possessiveness that should have frightened me but instead made me feel safer than I had in years. Say it again, he murmured against my hair. Yes, I'll marry you. His grip tightened. You have no idea what you've just done to me. Probably something illegal in several states. He laughed, the sound vibrating through his chest into mine. Then he pulled back, his hands framing my face, and kissed me with a hunger that stole my breath. This wasn't the claiming kiss from the terrace. This was gratitude and desire and promise all tangled together into something that made my knees weak. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, he rested his forehead against mine. We should go upstairs. Celebrate properly. I have a 1947 Chateau d'Yquem that's been waiting for the right occasion. I have no idea what that is, but it sounds expensive. Obscenely. He took my hand, threading our fingers together. Come on. Let's. His phone buzzed. Then again, and again in rapid succession. The softness vanished from his expression as he pulled it out. I watched his face change as he read the screen, watched the dangerous man return with a vengeance. What is it? I asked, though part of me didn't want to know. We have a problem. He was already moving toward the stairs, pulling me with him. A big one. Marco met us in the kitchen, his face grim. Sir, we have a breach. Southeast perimeter. 2 vehicles, at least 6 men. Armed. My blood turned to ice. The Volkovs? Most likely. Lucian's voice was calm, controlled, but I could feel the tension radiating from him. How long until they reach the house? 3 minutes. Maybe less. Marco's hand moved to the gun at his hip. All security protocols are active. The house is locked down. Lucian turned to me, his hands gripping my shoulders. Listen carefully. Marco is going to take you to the safe room. It's reinforced steel, separate ventilation, completely secure. You stay there until I come for you personally. No one else. Understood? What about you? My voice came out smaller than I intended. I'm going to handle this. He pressed a quick, hard kiss to my forehead. Trust me, Olivia. This isn't my first time dealing with the Volkovs. That's not reassuring. It should be. I'm still here, aren't I? He looked at Marco. Take her. Now. Marco's hand closed around my arm, surprisingly gentle despite the urgency. This way, Miss Martinez. Wait, I tried to pull back toward Lucian, but he'd already turned away, barking orders into his phone. Men materialized from various parts of the house, all armed, all moving with military precision. Marco led me through a door I'd assumed was a closet, but turned out to hide a staircase leading down not to the basement where Derek had been, but to something deeper. Underground. The walls were concrete reinforced with steel, and the air grew cooler as we descended. How often does this happen? I asked, my voice echoing slightly. Often enough that we're prepared. Marco's tone was matter-of-fact. Mr. Graves has enemies. Comes with the territory. We reached a heavy door that looked like it belonged in a bank vault. Marco entered a code, pressed his palm to a scanner, and the door swung open with a hydraulic hiss. Inside was a room about 15 feet square. Monitors lined one wall, showing various camera feeds from around the property. I could see the front gate, the gardens, the driveway, and on the southeast corner camera, I saw them 2 black SUVs crashing through what must have been a fence, men in tactical gear pouring out. Oh my God, I whispered. You're safe here. Marco guided me inside. Food, water, bathroom through that door. Communication system if you need to reach Mr. Graves. Don't open this door for anyone else. Marco, he'll be fine, Miss Martinez. This is what he does. Something almost like a smile crossed his scarred face. And now he has something worth protecting. Makes him even more dangerous. Then he was gone. The door ceiling shut behind him with a sound of finality that made my chest tighten. I was alone. I turned to the monitors, watching as Lucian's men took positions around the property. The feed showed Lucian himself standing on the front steps, apparently unarmed, waiting. The 2 SUVs pulled up in a spray of gravel. A man emerged from the first vehicle. Tall, broad-shouldered, with pale blonde hair and a face that looked like it had been carved from ice. He said something I couldn't hear, but his body language was pure threat. Lucian remained perfectly still, his posture relaxed but ready. They talked for what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes. The tension was visible even through the grainy camera feed. Then everything happened at once. One of the Volkov men raised a weapon. Lucian moved faster than I'd thought possible, diving behind a stone pillar as gunfire erupted. His men returned fire from their positions, and suddenly the peaceful estate had become a war zone. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think, could only watch in horror as the monitors showed chaos unfolding across the property. Then one of the screens went dark, then another. No, 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 no. I frantically pressed buttons on the console, trying to bring the feeds back up, but they stayed black. The intercom crackled to life, making me jump. Olivia, can you hear me? Lucian's voice. Thank God. I can hear you. What's happening? The cameras. They cut the feeds. Standard tactic. He sounded slightly out of breath, but otherwise calm. Are you okay? I'm fine. Are you okay? I've been better. Look, I need you to listen carefully. There's a laptop in the cabinet to your left. Turn it on. Password is your birthday, month, day, year, no spaces. How do you know my birthday? How do you know my birthday? I told you, I'm thorough. Do it now. My hands shook as I found the laptop and entered the password. It worked, and the screen lit up with files I didn't understand. It's on. Now what? Open the folder labeled Insurance. Read the file titled V Network. I did. What I saw made my stomach drop. It was a dossier. Names, addresses, photographs, bank accounts, business dealings, criminal activities. All connected to the Volkov family. But it wasn't just crime, it was everything. Their legitimate businesses, their political connections, their families. I couldn't finish the sentence. Everything I have on them, every vulnerability, every secret, every leverage point I've collected over 5 years. His voice was grim. I need you to send that file to the email address at the bottom of the document, right now. Lucian, what are you? Insurance, Olivia. I'm showing them exactly what I'll release if they don't walk away. But I need you to hit send. Can you do that? My finger hovered over the mouse. This felt wrong. Too easy. Too convenient. Why do you need me to do it? Why not? Because my phone is compromised. His voice was tight now, urgent. Someone in my organization is feeding the Volkovs information. How else would they have known about the southeast perimeter weakness? How else would they have gotten through security so quickly? Ice slid down my spine. You have a traitor. Yes. And until I know who, I can't trust anyone to send that file except you. Please, Olivia. I need you to trust me. I stared at the screen. At the files that could destroy an entire criminal organization. At the power Lucian was putting in my hands. If I do this, what happens? They see what I have. They back down. Everyone goes home. He paused. Or they call my bluff, and things get much worse before they get better. That's not reassuring. I know, but I'm out of options. Please. My finger moved to the send button. This was insane. I was about to insert myself directly into a Mafia war because a man I'd just agreed to marry was asking me to trust him. But that was the thing. I did trust him. Against all logic and reason, I trusted Lucian Graves. I hit send. Done, I said. Good. Now delete the sent folder. Clear the history. And Olivia? Yeah? No matter what happens next, stay in that room. Do you understand? No matter what you hear, no matter what anyone tells you, you stay there until I come for you. Lucian, you're scaring me. I know. I'm sorry. But I need you to promise me. I promise. The line went dead. I sat in the silence of the safe room, staring at blank monitors and waiting for the world above me to either save itself or burn down, and praying that when the door finally opened, Lucian Graves would be standing on the other side. Time lost all meaning in the safe room. I didn't have my phone. The monitors were still dark. The only sound was my own breathing and the distant hum of the ventilation system. I paced the small space like a caged animal, my mind spinning through worst-case scenarios faster than I could process them. What if Lucian was hurt? What if the Volkovs didn't care about his insurance files? What if the traitor in his organization was someone close to him, someone who could? The intercom crackled. Miss Martinez? Not. Lucian's voice. Marcos. I'm here, I said, moving closer to the speaker. What's happening? Where's Lucian? Silence stretched for a heartbeat too long. Mr. Graves is handling the situation, but he asked me to check on you. Make sure you're comfortable. Something in his tone felt wrong. Too formal, too careful. I'm fine. When can I come out? Soon. Very soon. Another pause. Miss Martinez, I need you to open the door. Every instinct I had screamed at me to refuse. Lucian had been explicit, don't open the door for anyone but him. But this was Marco, Lucian's most trusted man, the one who'd been with him through everything. Lucian said to wait for him personally. Plans changed. Marco's voice hardened slightly. The situation is contained, but we need to move you to a secondary location. There's a vehicle waiting, but I need you to open the door now. My hand moved toward the door panel, then stopped. No matter what anyone tells you, stay there until I come for you. Lucian's words echoed in my head. He'd known. Somehow he'd known this might happen. No, I said, stepping back from the door. I'm staying here until Lucian comes for me himself. The silence that followed was deafening. Then, don't make this difficult, Miss Martinez. Open the door. Go to hell. I heard movement outside. Voices more than one person. The sound of metal scraping against metal. They were trying to override the lock. My heart hammered as I frantically scanned the room for anything I could use as a weapon. The laptop, a chair, nothing that would be useful against armed men. The intercom crackled again, but this time, it was a different voice. Accented. Russian. Miss Martinez. My name is Dmitry Volkov. I believe you have something that belongs to me. Ice flooded my veins. The Volkovs were here. Inside the house. At the door of the safe room. I don't know what you're talking about, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. The file you sent. Very clever of Lucian to use you. I'll admit, we didn't expect that. His voice was smooth, almost pleasant. But you see, those files, they're meaningless without context, without the encryption keys he keeps in his head. And to get those keys, I need leverage. I'm not opening this door. I'm not asking you to. I heard something that might have been amusement. This door can withstand a great many things, but not C4 explosives, and I have plenty of those. You'll kill me, possibly, but probably not. These doors are designed to contain blasts inward. You'll survive barely, and then we'll have our conversation about Lucian's files while you recover in our facility. He paused. Or you can open the door now, come with us peacefully, and spare yourself considerable pain. Where's Lucian? I demanded. Occupied. Several of his men are still putting up resistance. Admirable, really, but ultimately futile. Metal scraped again, closer to the door hinges. You have 2 minutes to decide, Miss Martinez. Easy or hard. Your choice. The line went dead. I stood frozen, my mind racing. They were going to blow the door. Either I died or got captured, and either way, they'd use me against Lucian. Everything he'd tried to protect me from was happening. Because of Marco, the traitor had been right beside him this entire time. My eyes fell on the laptop, still open, still connected. The communications system. If the Volkovs had compromised the intercom, maybe there was another way. I opened the laptop's messaging system, praying it was on a separate network. Found Lucian's contact, typed with shaking fingers. Volkov's at safe room door. Marco is the traitor. They're going to blow the door in 2 minutes. I'm sorry. I love you. I hit send before I could second-guess the last part, before I could wonder if it was insane to say that to someone I'd known for 2 days. Before I could, the laptop pinged with a response. Stay away from the door. Cover your ears. Close your eyes. Trust me. That was all. No explanation. No reassurance. I grabbed a cushion from the chair, wedged myself into the corner farthest from the door, pressed the cushion against my ears, and squeezed my eyes shut, and waited. The explosion, when it came, was muffled by the cushion but still deafening. The room shook. Dust rained from the ceiling. My ears rang so loudly I couldn't hear anything else, but the door held. I opened my eyes to see it buckled but still intact, smoke curling around the edges. Through the ringing in my ears I heard shouts of confusion. Then something else. Gunfire. Close. Right outside the safe room. I stayed frozen in my corner. The cushion still pressed against me like it could offer any real protection. The sounds of combat filtered through shouts in English and Russian. The crack of weapons. The heavy thud of bodies hitting the floor. Then silence. My ears were still ringing, so I almost didn't hear the keypad beeping. The hydraulic hiss of the door, what remained of it, opening. Lucian appeared through the smoke like an avenging angel, his face streaked with dirt and blood, his shirt torn, a gun in one hand. When his eyes found me huddled in the corner, something raw and desperate crossed his face. Olivia. My name came out ragged. Thank God. He was across the room in 3 strides, pulling me up and into his arms with a force that drove the air from my lungs. His hands ran over me, checking for injuries, his breath coming hard and fast against my hair. I'm okay, I managed to say, even though I was shaking so hard my teeth chattered. I'm okay. Marco? His voice was tight. Traitor. He tried to get me to open the door. Then the Volkovs. I couldn't finish the sentence. I know. I heard everything. His arms tightened around me. The communication system has a backup recording function. I heard every word. Is he dead? No emotion in the word. Just fact. They all are. The Volkovs who made it inside. Marco. 3 others who were on there. Payroll. He pulled back to look at me, his hands framing my face. It's over. How did you know? About Marco? I didn't. Not for certain. His thumb traced my cheekbone. But I've learned to trust my instincts. Something felt wrong about how easily they found our weak points. When you sent that file and they still pushed forward, I knew someone had told them it was a bluff. His jaw clenched. Marco was the only one who knew the safe room's exact protocols. Who knew I'd put you there? You used me as bait. The realization settled over me like ice water. No. His eyes blazed. I used the situation as bait. I would never have let them get to you. I had men staged in the tunnels beneath this room, ready to breach from below if they'd actually gotten through that door. You were never in real danger. I heard an explosion. Felt the building shake. That felt pretty real to me. I know. I'm sorry. But I needed them to believe they had you. Needed them to commit fully to the breach so my men could surround them. His forehead pressed against mine. I would never have risked you if there was any other way. You should have told me. Would you have been able to sell the fear if you'd known it was a trap? He was right, and I hated that he was right. My terror had been real, had been convincing, had made the Volkovs confident enough to push forward into Lucian's ambush. I hate you a little right now, I whispered. I know. He kissed my forehead, gentle despite everything. But you're alive, safe. And the Volkov threat is neutralized. The rest of their organization will think twice before coming after me now. Because you killed their people? Because I proved I'll do whatever it takes to protect what's mine. His eyes met mine, dark and intense. And you're mine, Olivia. You said yes. That means I'll burn the world down before I let anyone hurt you. It should have sounded possessive, controlling, terrifying. Instead, it sounded like a promise. Take me. Upstairs, I said quietly. Please, I need to get out of this room. He lifted me effortlessly, cradling me against his chest as he carried me through the carnage in the hallway. I kept my eyes closed, not wanting to see the bodies, the blood, the evidence of the violence that had erupted in this beautiful house. When we finally reached his bedroom, he set me down gently on the bed. I need to finish securing the property, he said. But I won't be long. Don't leave me alone. The words came out small, broken. His expression softened. He pulled out his phone, spoke quietly to someone. Then he kicked off his shoes and climbed onto the bed beside me, pulling me against his chest. I'm not going anywhere, he murmured into my hair. You're stuck with me now. I woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows and the weight of Lucian's arm around my waist. For a moment, I forgot where I was, forgot everything that had happened. Then it all came rushing back. The explosion, the gunfire, Marco's betrayal, the bodies in the hallway. I'd fallen asleep in Lucian's arms while he murmured reassurances I only half heard through the fog of exhaustion and shock. Now, in the clear light of morning, reality settled over me like a heavy blanket. This was my life now. If I stayed. Lucian's breathing changed, and I knew he was awake even before he spoke. How are you feeling? I don't know, I answered honestly. Ask me again in a week. Or a year. His arm tightened around me. I'm sorry you had to see that side of my world. That you had to experience it firsthand. Are you? I turned to face him. In the morning light, he looked different. Younger, somehow. More human. The dried blood was gone. He must have showered while I slept, and his hair was still damp against the pillow. Because it seems like this is just what you do. It's what I do to survive, to protect what's mine. His hand came up to trace the line of my jaw, but I never wanted you caught in the crossfire. Then let me go. The words hung between us. End the engagement. Tell everyone it was a mistake. Let me go back to my normal life. His eyes darkened. Is that what you want? I don't know what I want anymore. I sat up, pulling away from him. The silk sheets pooled around my waist. Someone had changed me into pajamas while I slept, and I tried not to think too hard about that. 2 days ago, my biggest problem was a cheating boyfriend. Now I'm engaged to a mafia boss. I've been targeted by Russian criminals, and I watched you orchestrate a trap that left multiple people dead. They would have killed you without hesitation. His voice was flat, matter of fact. Used you, tortured you, discarded you when they were done. I did what was necessary. I know. That was the worst part. I did know. Understood it on a logical level, but understanding something and being okay with it are two different things. He sat up beside me, the sheet falling to reveal his bare chest. I could see bruises forming along his ribs, cuts on his shoulders, evidence of the battle I hadn't witnessed. "Tell me what you need from me." "Honesty, complete honesty." I turned to face him fully. "What happens if I stay?" "Not the fantasy version you sold me at the restaurant, the real version." He was quiet for a long moment, his jaw working. Then, "You'll live in a gilded cage. Beautiful, luxurious, but still a cage. You'll have security everywhere you go. Guards, drivers, protocols you'll have to follow. Every friendship will be scrutinized. Every decision will have security implications. And the violence? I'll try to keep it from you, but I can't promise it won't touch you again. My enemies will always see you as leverage, as a weakness to exploit." "What about children?" The question surprised me as much as him. "If we have kids someday, they'll grow up in this world, with guards and threats, and they'll be protected, trained, given every advantage." His hand found mine. "But yes, they'll know danger in ways other children don't. It's the price of this life." I looked down at our intertwined fingers. His hands were scarred, calloused, hands that had killed people just hours ago, hands that held me with surprising gentleness. "I need time," I said finally. "Real time, not the decide in one day ultimatum. I need to think about this without adrenaline and fear clouding everything." "How much time?" "I don't know. A week? A month? You can have whatever you need." He brought my hand to his lips. "But you're staying here while you decide. The threat is neutralized, but I'm not taking chances with your safety. So I'm a prisoner. You're protected. There's a difference." "Is there?" I pulled my hand away. "You're still controlling where I go, what I do, who I see, for now." His voice hardened slightly. "Until I'm certain every last Volkov connection is severed. Until I've rebuilt my security team with people I can actually trust. Then you can decide stay with me, or walk away with enough protection to live safely. And if I choose to walk away?" Something flickered across his face. "Pain, maybe, or anger. Then you walk away. I won't stop you. Won't force you into a life you don't want. You promise?" "I promise." He leaned closer, his breath warm against my skin. "But I'm going to do everything in my power to make you want to stay. To show you that this life, my life, can be more than violence and danger. That there's beauty here too. Passion, purpose." "Lucian." A knock at the door interrupted whatever I was about to say. Lucian's expression shifted immediately, the vulnerable man disappearing behind the controlled mask. "Come in." A woman entered, late 50s, gray hair pulled into a neat bun, wearing professional attire that screamed efficiency. "Mr. Graves, the cleanup is complete. The authorities have been managed, and you have several calls waiting." "Thank you, Elena." He glanced at me. "This is Olivia Martinez, my fiancée. She'll be staying here for the foreseeable future. Make sure she has everything she needs." Elena's eyes assessed me with the sharp intelligence of someone who'd survived in Lucian's world by missing nothing. "Of course. Miss Martinez, if you'll follow me, I've prepared a selection of clothing in your size and breakfast is ready in the morning room." I looked at Lucian, who nodded slightly. Taking the dismissal for what it was, I slid out of bed and followed Elena from the room, feeling his eyes on me the entire way. Elena led me through the mansion, carefully avoiding whatever hallways still showed evidence of last night's violence, to a sunny room overlooking the gardens. A spread of breakfast waited, and beside the table, a rack of clothing that looked like it had been pulled from a high-end boutique. "Mr. Graves has impeccable taste," Elena said, noticing my stare. "And extensive resources. If anything doesn't fit or suit you, simply let me know." "How long have you worked for him?" I asked, selecting a simple dress from the rack. 15 years. I was his father's assistant before him." "And you've seen everything?" Her expression didn't change. "I've seen enough to know that Lucian Graves is a complicated man in a complicated world. But I've also seen that he's never looked at anyone the way he looks at you. We barely know each other. Sometimes knowing takes years. Sometimes it takes minutes." She moved toward the door. "I'll give you privacy to change and eat. If you need anything, press the button by the table. Someone will respond immediately." When she left, I stood alone in the beautiful room, surrounded by luxury and choices I'd never imagined having. I could stay, build a life here in this dangerous, glittering world with a man who terrified and fascinated me in equal measure. Or I could leave. Return to my small apartment, my nursing shifts, my safe, predictable existence. Neither option felt right, neither felt wrong. I dressed in the soft blue dress that fit perfectly, of course it did, and sat down to breakfast I couldn't taste. My mind spun with possibilities, consequences, fears, and one undeniable truth I'd been trying to ignore. When the explosion happened, when I thought I might die, the last thing I'd written was "I love you." I'd meant it, which meant I was already too far gone to make any rational decision about my future. I was falling in love with Lucian Graves, and that was more terrifying than any threat the Volkovs could have made. 3 days passed in a strange limbo. I wandered the estate like a ghost, exploring rooms I'd never seen, reading books from Lucian's extensive library, watching the guards patrol from my window. Lucian gave me space, appearing only at dinner, where we made careful conversation about everything except the question hanging between us. Would I stay, or would I go? On the 4th morning, Elena found me in the garden, staring at roses I couldn't name. "Mr. Graves requests your presence in his office." Something in her tone made my stomach tighten. "Is something wrong?" "He'll explain." She gestured toward the house. "This way, please." Lucian's office was all dark wood and leather, walls lined with books and art that probably cost more than most houses. He stood by the window, his back to me, tension visible in every line of his body. "Close the door," he said without turning. I did, my heart beginning to race. "What's wrong?" "We have a problem." He turned, and I saw the exhaustion on his face. "A federal investigation. They're building a RICO case against my organization. Have been for months." RICO? Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act. If they can prove a pattern of criminal activity, they can seize everything. My assets, my businesses, everything I've built. He moved to his desk, pulled out a folder. They have testimony from 3 of my former associates. Documents linking me to various crimes. And now, after last night, they have bodies. The room tilted slightly. The Volkovs. The cleanup wasn't perfect. Local police are asking questions. Federal agents are circling. It's only a matter of time before they connect everything back to me. He handed me the folder. "This is what I'm facing. 20 years minimum. Maybe life." My hands shook as I opened it. Legal documents I barely understood, but the implications were clear. "What are you going to do?" "Run. There's a jet fueled and ready. Multiple offshore accounts they haven't found yet. New identities prepared. I can disappear. Start over somewhere they'll never find me." His eyes met mine. "But I need to know. Right now. Are you coming with me?" "What?" The word came out as barely a whisper. "This is your choice, Olivia. Your real choice. Not a theoretical decision you have weeks to think about." He moved closer, his intensity almost overwhelming. "If you come with me, we leave in 2 hours. Leave everything behind: your job, your friends, your mother in Texas. You become someone else. Mrs. Lucian Graves, wife of a fugitive, living in hiding for the rest of your life. And if I don't, then I leave alone. You go back to your apartment, your life. The authorities will question you, but you're not implicated in anything. You walk away clean." His hand came up to cup my face. No judgment either way, no pressure. Just your choice. My mind reeled. This was insane, completely insane. Where would we go? I have properties in countries without extradition treaties. South America, Southeast Asia, places where money buys silence and new names erase old sins. His thumb traced my cheekbone. "Not the life I promised you. Not luxury and power and security. Just me, running from my past, trying to build something new. That's not what I signed up for." "I know. Which is why I'm giving you out." His voice softened. "You were right. This happened too fast. We don't really know each other. You don't owe me anything. I said I'd marry you. You said a lot of things under duress, under fear, under the influence of adrenaline, and my considerable powers of persuasion." A ghost of a smile crossed his lips. "But this is real, Olivia. This is the moment where fairy tales end and reality begins. And reality is ugly, complicated, dangerous." I stepped back, needing distance to think. "You're asking me to abandon everything. My entire life. My identity. For what? A man I met 4 days ago? Yes. No hesitation, no apology. I'm asking you to take a leap of faith into darkness, with no guarantee of where you'll land. It's selfish, It's unfair. It's probably the worst decision you could make. He moved closer again. But it's also the only way we have a future. Together. Why me? The question burst out. Out of everyone you could have chosen. Everyone who would have said yes without hesitation. Why did you pick me? Because you asked that question. His hands framed my face. Because you challenged me in that restaurant, instead of being flattered. Because you stood up to the Volkovs through that intercom when you could have broken. Because when you sent me that message thinking you might die, you ended it with, "I love you." My breath caught. You saw that. I saw it, and I've been terrified to acknowledge it because I knew this moment was coming. Knew I'd have to ask you to choose between everything you've ever known and a man who's about to lose everything. His forehead pressed against mine. I love you, Olivia Martinez. I've loved you since that restaurant when you stood in that red dress and refused to let Derek break you. And I'm asking you, begging you to run away with me. Tears streaked down my face. This is crazy. I know. I don't even have a passport. I have 3 for you. Take your pick of names and birthdays. My mother, I've arranged for money to be sent monthly through an intermediary. She'll never want for anything. She just won't know it's from you. He'd thought of everything. Planned for every contingency. Because that's what Lucian Graves did. He controlled. He prepared. He made sure every variable was accounted for. Except me. I was the one variable he couldn't control. I need time, I said. We don't have time. 2 hours, Olivia. That's all I can give you. That's not fair. Nothing about this is fair. His voice rose for the first time, raw emotion breaking through. You think I want to ask you this? You think I want to drag you into this disaster? I should have left you alone. Should have walked past your table that night and never looked back. But I didn't. I saw you and I wanted you and I took you. Consequences be damned. So this is my fault? No. He pulled me against him fiercely. This is my fault. All of it. And I'm giving you the choice I never gave myself. Stay or go. Safe life or dangerous one. Known quantity or terrifying unknown. I pressed my face against his chest, breathing in his scent, feeling his heart hammering against mine. 4 days. I'd known this man 4 days. It should have been impossible to love someone in 4 days. But I did. God help me, I did. If we do this, I said against his shirt. If I come with you, I need you to promise me something. Anything. No more lies. No more manipulation. No more using me as bait or keeping me in the dark for my own protection. I pulled back to meet his eyes. If we're partners, we're actually partners. Equal. Honest. Or this doesn't work. Something shifted in his expression. Relief, maybe. Or hope. Partners. I promise. And we get married. Actually married. Not this vague engagement. If I'm running away with you, if I'm giving up everything, then I want the commitment. The real thing. We'll marry before we leave. I have a judge who owes me favors. Of course you do. I laughed, but it came out broken. I can't believe I'm considering this. Is that a yes? I looked into his dark eyes and saw my future reflected there. Not the safe, predictable one I'd always imagined. Not the comfortable existence with a nice man and a house in the suburbs and 2.5 children, but something real, something terrifying, something that made me feel more alive in 4 days than I had in 3 years. Yes, I whispered. God help me. Yes. His kiss was desperate, grateful, claiming, when we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, he rested his forehead against mine. You won't regret this. I already regret this. I smiled through my tears. But I'm doing it anyway. That's my girl. He grabbed his phone. Elena, prepare Miss Martinez for departure. And get Judge Morrison on the phone. We have a wedding to arrange. 2 hours. I had 2 hours to say goodbye to the life I'd known and hello to whatever came next, with Lucian Graves by my side, for better or worse. The wedding happened in Lucian's study with Judge Morrison presiding, Elena and 2 guards as witnesses, and 63 minutes remaining before our departure. I wore a cream silk dress Elena had somehow procured in 30 minutes. Lucian wore a dark suit, his hand steady as he slipped a platinum band onto my finger. Simple, elegant, nothing like the ostentatious engagement ring that now sat in a safe somewhere. I do, I said when prompted, my voice surprisingly clear. I do, Lucian echoed, his eyes never leaving mine. By the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife. Judge Morrison closed his book with practiced efficiency. Mr. Graves, you may kiss your bride. Lucian's kiss was gentle, reverent, a stark contrast to the desperate passion of earlier. When he pulled back, he whispered against my lips, "No regrets? Ask me in a year." I whispered back, "Or 10. Judge Morrison disappeared as quickly as he'd arrived with a sealed envelope Lucian handed him and a warning look that suggested silence was non-negotiable. Elena presented me with 3 passports, each with my photo but different names. Sophie Bennett, Canadian; Marie Dubois, French; Isabella Romano, Italian. She laid them on the desk. "Choose one." I stared at the documents, at the strangers wearing my face. This was real. This was actually happening. "Sophie," I said finally. Canadian felt safest somehow, most innocuous. Lucian nodded approval. "Sophie Graves, I like it." "Sophie Bennett," I corrected. "We shouldn't travel as a married couple. Too easy to trace." Something flickered in his expression. Surprise, maybe? Or pride? "You're right. Smart." He glanced at Elena. "Book us on separate flights to Sao Paulo. Different airlines, 2 hours apart." "Already done, sir. Miss Bennett flies at 3 p.m. You fly at 5. Of course she'd anticipated it. I was starting to understand that Elena anticipated everything. "The car is waiting," she continued. "Private airfield, 40 minutes from here. You need to leave now." Reality crashed over me. This was it. The point of no return. Lucian must have seen something in my face because he took my hand, threading our fingers together. "Last chance to change your mind." I meant what I said. No judgment. You can still walk away. I looked at our joined hands, his scarred and capable, mine smaller and trembling slightly. "I already married you. Little late for cold feet. Marriages can be annulled." "Lucian." I met his eyes. "Stop giving me outs." I made my choice. "I'm terrified, but I'm staying." His grip tightened. "Then let's go build our new life, Mrs. Graves." The drive to the airfield was silent, both of us lost in thoughts we didn't share. I watched the city disappear behind us, wondering if I'd ever see it again, wondering what my coworkers would think when I simply vanished, what Sarah would tell people when I never answered her calls, what my mother would do when the money started arriving with no explanation. "I need to call her," I said suddenly. "My mom. Before we leave. I can't just disappear without—" "No calls." Lucian's voice was firm. "I'm sorry, but any contact can be traced. The authorities will monitor your family, your friends, everyone you've ever known. One call could expose everything. So I just abandon her? Let her think I'm dead or kidnapped, or she'll know you're alive. I'll make sure of it." He pulled out his phone, typed quickly. "Elena will arrange for a letter to be delivered in 6 months. Vague enough to avoid tracking, specific enough that she'll know it's really from you. But that's all I can offer. It wasn't enough, would never be enough, but it was better than nothing." "Okay," I said quietly. "Okay." The airfield appeared small, private, with a sleek jet waiting on the tarmac. Lucian's hand found mine again as we exited the car. "This is the first leg," he explained. "Sao Paulo, then Rio, then our final destination. Multiple hops to confuse the trail." "Where's our final destination?" "You'll see when we get there." A ghost of a smile. Some surprises should remain surprises. Elena met us on the tarmac with a small bag. "Everything you'll need for the first week. Money, documents, contacts. The rest is waiting for you." "Thank you, Elena." Lucian's voice was softer than I'd heard it. "For everything. All these years." "It's been an honor, sir." She turned to me. "Take care of him, Mrs. Graves. He's more fragile than he looks." "I'm standing right here," Lucian protested. "Which is why I'm saying it." Elena's lips twitched into almost smile. "Now go, both of you. Before the window closes." I hugged her impulsively, surprising us both. "Thank you for everything you did for me." "Be happy," she murmured. "That's all the thanks I need." Then I was climbing the jet stairs, Lucian behind me, and the door was sealing shut with a finality that made my chest tight. The interior was luxurious leather seats, polished wood. Enough space for a dozen people, but configured for intimacy. "Your flight is in 2 hours," Lucian reminded me. "Different route, different airline. We meet at the hotel in Rio. And if something goes wrong, if I don't make it, you'll make it." His certainty was absolute. "You're stronger than you think, Olivia. You've proven that a dozen times over the past 4 days. The pilot's voice crackled over the intercom. Miss Bennett, we're ready for departure when you are. This was it. The absolute final moment where I could change everything. I could walk off this plane, tell the pilot I'd changed my mind, return to my apartment and my job and my safe, boring life. Instead, I sat down, buckled my seatbelt, and looked at Lucian standing by the door. See you in Rio? I said. See you in Rio. He crossed to me in 3 strides, cupped my face, and kissed me like it might be the last time. When he pulled back, his eyes were intense. I love you, Sophie Graves. I love you too. The words felt easier this time, more real. Now get off my plane before we both miss our flights. He laughed genuine, surprised, and backed toward the door. That's my wife. Bossy already. You have no idea what you've gotten yourself into. I'm looking forward to finding out. Then he was gone, the door sealing, and the jet was moving. I watched through the window as Lucian climbed into a car, watched as it drove away, taking with it the man I'd married 4 days after meeting him in a restaurant during the worst moment of my life. The jet lifted into the sky, and I watched the city shrink below. Somewhere down there, Derek was living his new life in Seattle. Sarah was starting her shift at the hospital. My mother was probably gardening, completely unaware that her daughter had just disappeared. And I was Sophie Bennett, Canadian tourist, heading to Brazil to start over with nothing but a fake passport, and the memory of Lucian's kiss still warm on my lips. The flight attendant offered champagne. I accepted it, raising the glass in a silent toast to the life I was leaving behind and the unknown future ahead. 12 hours later, I walked off the plane in Rio, cleared customs without incident, and found a car waiting with a sign that read, Bennett. The driver handed me an envelope. Inside was a hotel key and a note in Lucian's handwriting. Room 1847. I'll be there by midnight. Order room service. Take a bath. Rest. When I arrive, we start our real honeymoon. Our real life. Together. Forever. I clutched the note as the car wound through Rio's evening traffic, past beaches and favelas, and the Cristo Redentor statue standing watch over the city. When we arrived at the hotel 5-star, oceanfront, beautiful, I checked in as Sophie Bennett and took the elevator to the 18th floor. The room was stunning. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Copacabana Beach, a king bed with silk sheets, champagne chilling in an ice bucket, and on the pillow, a single red rose with another note. Thank you for choosing me, for choosing us, for being brave enough to leap into the unknown. I promised to spend the rest of my life proving I was worth it. See you soon, my love. Lucian, I picked up the rose, pressed it to my lips, and watched the sun set over Rio de Janeiro. 4 days ago, Derek had broken my heart in a restaurant. Today, I was Sophie Graves, wife of a fugitive, starting over in a country where nobody knew my name. It was terrifying, reckless, completely insane. It was also the first day of the rest of my life, and I couldn't wait to see what happened next.